The responding officer arrived at the address at 11:42 p.m. The call had come in at 11:38. Disturbance. Possible break-in. He knocked. Announced himself. The door opened. A woman stood there. Mid-30s. She said she was fine. No disturbance. No break-in. Must have been a wrong number. The officer asked if she'd called. She said no. He checked his radio log. The call had come from her phone. Her landline. He showed her the number. She confirmed it was hers. Said she hadn't made any calls. Hadn't touched the phone all evening. He asked if anyone else was home. She said no. Just her. He asked if he could check inside. Make sure everything was secure. She agreed. He walked through. Living room. Kitchen. Bedroom. Bathroom. Everything normal. No signs of entry. No damage. No one else present. He thanked her. Left. Filed his report. No incident found. But when dispatch pulled the call, recording the next morning, there were two voices. The woman requesting help. And another voice in the background. Male. Saying her address. Saying to hurry. The woman had no husband. No roommate. No guest that night. And her phone records showed the call lasted 47 seconds. But the recording was 3 minutes and 18 seconds long. The extra time contained silence, breathing, movement, then disconnection. The call happened, but the timeline doesn't match. The voices were there, but one of them shouldn't have been possible. Night work becomes normal after a few months. The first weeks are difficult. Your body resists. Sleep doesn't come during the day. Appetite is wrong. Energy levels drop at unexpected times. But gradually something shifts. The circadian rhythm inverts. You start feeling alert at midnight. Start feeling tired at dawn. It's not comfortable exactly, but it becomes functional. And with that functionality comes a certain perspective. You see the world differently at night. Not just the darkness, but the absence. Most human activity stops. Roads empty. Buildings go dark. The constant background noise of daily life fades to almost nothing. What remains is infrastructure. Systems continuing to operate. Traffic signals cycling through empty intersections. Street lights illuminating nothing. Security cameras recording vacant spaces. All of this keeps running whether anyone's watching or not. And you become part of that automated continuation, moving through predetermined routes, following established protocols, documenting according to standardized procedures. After a while, it feels less like work and more like maintenance. You're not policing people. You're monitoring systems, making sure everything continues functioning, that nothing deviates from its programmed behavior. And when something does deviate, when something breaks pattern, it's noticeable immediately, not because it's dramatic, but because the background consistency makes any variation obvious. A car on a road that's usually empty. A light on in a building that's always dark. A sound where there's normally silence. These things register, demand attention, require investigation. Most of the time, they're nothing. A late worker, a forgotten light, an animal in the underbrush. But occasionally, they're not nothing. Occasionally, there's something that shouldn't be there, something that doesn't fit. And those are the calls you remember. A bridge maintenance inspector in Michigan worked overnight structural assessments. Large suspension bridge. Heavy traffic during the day. Inspections had to happen at night when lanes could be closed. His team would close one section, set up equipment, inspect cables, check welds, look for stress fractures, document wear. Standard engineering work. One October night, they were working the North Tower. 3-man team. They'd been at it for 2 hours. Around 1 a.m. Everything routine. The inspector was checking cable connections at the tower base, his flashlight illuminating each junction point. He heard something. A voice. Calling. Not loud. Distant. coming from above. He stopped, listened. The voice called again. Sounded like someone saying hello, asking for help. He radioed his team, asked if they heard it. They confirmed. All three heard it, coming from up the tower. The inspector looked up. The tower rose 200 feet. Ladders and platforms ran up its length. Service access. But they hadn't sent anyone up. The section was closed. No climbers scheduled. He called out, asked if anyone was up there. The voice responded, saying yes, saying they needed help, couldn't get down. The inspector radioed control, reported a possible climber, unauthorized access. They said they'd send security. He told his team to wait. Don't approach until security arrived. They waited. The voice called again, sounded distressed now, saying please, saying it was cold. The inspector felt pressure to respond. Someone was up there, possibly in danger. But protocol said wait for security. He compromised, started climbing, slowly, checking each level. The voice kept calling, always seeming to come from above. He climbed past the first platform. Nothing. Second platform. Nothing. He was 50 feet up now. The voice called again, closer, right above him. He climbed to the third platform, stopped. The platform was empty, but the voice came again, right there, inches away, saying thank you, saying you found me. He swept his flashlight across the platform. Nothing. He called out, where are you? The voice said right here, right in front of you. He stepped forward, felt resistance, like walking into something. But there was nothing there, just air. The resistance increased, pressure against his chest. He stepped back. The pressure released. He radioed down, told his team something was wrong. Come up. Bring equipment. They climbed, reached his position. He described what happened. They tested it, walking forward into the empty space. All three felt it. Solid resistance. Invisible barrier, like plexiglass. But there was nothing there. They pressed harder. The resistance gave slightly, yielded, then pushed back, like something elastic, something living. The voice spoke again, behind them now, saying don't leave, saying stay. They turned. Nothing. They descended, quickly, reached the base. Security arrived. They explained. Security climbed up, came back 10 minutes later, said the platform was empty. No barrier, no resistance, nothing unusual. The inspector and his team were certain. They'd felt it. All three. Solid. Real. But security found nothing. The inspection was suspended. The section reopened. A full engineering survey was ordered. Took place the next week. Daylight. Complete structural analysis. No anomalies. No damage. No explanation. The voice was never heard again. The inspector requested transfer to a different bridge. Got it. His team split up. Different assignments. None of them talk about that night. But the inspector keeps the maintenance logs. His documentation. Because 3 people experienced something. 3 trained professionals. And they all agree on what happened. But the official record says nothing was found. Says the inspection was routine until equipment failure forced early termination. Says nothing about voices. Nothing about barriers. Nothing about invisible pressure on an empty platform. The record is incomplete, or their experience was false. And he doesn't know which possibility is worse. Something about that platform made the structure reports from previous years worth reading. No one ever does. A park ranger in Washington State managed a large urban forest. Hundreds of acres. Trail system. Popular during the day. Empty at night. No camping allowed. Gates closed at dusk. His job included overnight patrols. Making sure no one was camping illegally. Checking for fires. Monitoring wildlife. Standard park security. One night in May, he was patrolling the eastern section. Around midnight, driving the service roads, his headlights catching reflective trail markers. Everything quiet. He came around a bend, saw something in the road ahead. He slowed. A bicycle, standing upright, kickstand down, right in the middle of the service road. He stopped, got out, examined it. Mountain bike, good condition, not abandoned, recently used. He looked around, called out. No response. The forest was dark beyond his lights. Dense trees, heavy undergrowth. He checked the bike more carefully. No identification, no lock, no bag, just the bike. He radioed it in. Dispatch logged it. Asked if he wanted removal. He said he'd wait, see if anyone came back for it. Maybe someone had gone off trail, would return. He moved his vehicle to the side, left his lights on, waited 20 minutes. No one appeared. He decided to secure the bike, bring it back to the ranger station. Lost and found. He walked over, reached for the handlebars. The bike fell over, away from him, like someone had pushed it. He hadn't touched it yet. It just fell. He picked it up, set it upright. It was heavier than expected, much heavier, like someone was sitting on it. He stepped back. The bike remained upright, kickstand down, but the weight was wrong. He could feel it. The bike should have fallen without the kickstand holding all that weight. He tried lifting it again. Same sensation, heavy, resistant, like lifting something occupied. He let go. The bike stayed upright. He walked around it, examined it from all sides. Nothing unusual, just a bike. But the weight, the resistance, that wasn't normal. He tried one more time, grabbed the frame, lifted. The weight was gone. Normal bike weight, light, easy to lift. He loaded it into his vehicle, secured it, drove back to the station, logged it in, went back out to finish his patrol. The next morning the bike was gone. Not picked up, not signed out, gone. He checked the logs. No one had accessed the storage area. The lock was still secured, but the bike wasn't there. He reported it. His supervisor checked, confirmed. No record of removal, no sign of forced entry, just gone. They reviewed security footage. The camera showed the storage area. The bike was visible when the ranger put it there. 1 a.m. frame by frame they watched. At 4:17 a.m., the bike vanished. Not rolled away, not carried, just vanished between frames. One frame present, next frame absent. They checked the camera. No malfunction, no tampering, just a bike disappearing. The ranger filed an incident report. Theft, unknown suspect. But he knew it wasn't theft. He'd felt the weight, the resistance. Something had been on that bike. Something that came back for it. Something that waited until he was gone, until the forest was empty, then retrieved what belonged to it. And he wonders sometimes if he'd waited longer, if he'd stayed with the bike instead of taking it, if he would have seen what came back, what claimed it, or if maybe it's better he didn't. Better he just has the memory of the weight, the wrong weight, and the knowledge that something rides those trails at night. Invisible, solid enough to affect a bike's balance, solid enough to feel like presence, but invisible enough to avoid cameras, avoid observation, avoid any proof beyond the sensation it leaves behind. He doesn't patrol that section without backup anymore. There's a phenomenon: emergency responders call phantom calls. Calls that come in, get dispatched. Units respond, find nothing. No caller, no situation, no evidence anything happened. These are common. Misdialed numbers, accidental activations, kids playing with phones. Most are resolved quickly, but some aren't. Some show every sign of being legitimate. Good location data, clear voice, specific details. Units respond and find nothing. Nothing wrong. Nothing at all. No building at that address. No road. No landmark. Just empty space where something should be. These calls are documented differently. Not false reports. Not errors. Just unresolved. And they accumulate. Year after year. Hundreds of calls to places that don't exist. From people who aren't there. Requesting help for situations that never happened. And the pattern suggests something. Not malice. Not deception. Just calls coming from somewhere else. Some other version of the city. Some other timeline where those buildings exist. Those roads are real. Those situations are happening. And somehow the calls are crossing over. Bleeding through. Being received in this reality even though they originated in another. But thinking that way leads nowhere. So they're filed as unresolved. Archived. And everyone moves forward. Because the alternative is accepting that the dispatch system is receiving transmissions from places that don't exist. From versions of reality that aren't this one. And that's not something anyone's prepared to acknowledge. So they just keep answering, keep responding, keep finding nothing, and adding to the archive of impossibility. A customs officer in Ontario worked a border crossing. Moderate traffic. Mixture of commercial and private vehicles. Night shifts were quieter but steady. Standard inspections. Documentation checks. Occasionally secondary searches. Routine work. One August night a vehicle approached. Around 2 a.m. sedan. Single occupant. Male driver. The officer signaled him to stop. Approached the window. Asked for documents. The driver handed over a passport and declaration form. The officer examined them. Canadian citizen. Returning from a day trip. Declaring nothing. The officer asked a few questions. Where had he been? Shopping. What did he buy? Nothing. Window shopping. The responses were normal. No red flags. But something felt off. The officer couldn't identify what. Just an instinct. He asked the driver to pull into secondary inspection. The driver complied. No resistance. No nervousness. Just pulled over and waited. The officer walked around the vehicle. Looked through the windows. Trunk was empty. Back seat was empty. Everything appeared normal. He opened the driver's door. Asked the man to step out. The driver did. Stood calmly. Patient. The officer asked if he could search the vehicle. The driver said yes. The officer searched. Thoroughly. Checked under seats. In the glove box. Under floor mats. Trunk. Spare tire compartment. Nothing. Vehicle was clean. He returned to the driver. Asked him to empty his pockets. The driver complied. Wallet. Keys. Phone. Nothing unusual. The officer checked the wallet. License matched the passport. Credit cards. Some cash. Normal contents. He checked the phone. Recent model. Locked. He asked the driver to unlock it. The driver entered his code. Handed it back. The officer looked through it. Messages. Photos. Apps. Everything normal. Too normal. That's what bothered him. Everything was exactly right. Perfectly ordinary. No anomalies. No personal touches. No idiosyncrasies. Just generic normalcy. He handed the phone back. Asked the driver where he lived. The driver gave an address. The officer checked it against the license. Matched. He asked what the driver did for work. The driver described an office job. Details that were plausible but vague. The officer asked the name of his employer. The driver gave a company name. The officer made note of it. He couldn't find a reason to detain longer. Everything checked out. He told the driver he was free to go. The driver thanked him. Got back in his vehicle. Drove across the border. The officer logged the encounter. Noted his concerns. Later that shift, he checked the address. Looked it up on mapping software. It existed. Residential street. Looked normal. He checked the company name. It existed too. Legitimate business. Phone number. Website. Everything appeared real, but something still bothered him. The next day, he called the company, asked if they employed the driver, gave the name from the passport. They said no. No employee by that name. Never had been. The officer checked with the provincial registry. The address was real but currently vacant. Had been for 6 months. He tried calling the phone number from the driver's documents. Disconnected. He pulled the border crossing footage. Reviewed it. The vehicle appeared. Stopped. The driver's door opened. Closed. The vehicle pulled forward. Into secondary inspection. Stopped. Door opened. Closed. Then pulled forward. Crossed the border. But the driver wasn't visible. Not in any frame. The car appeared to be empty. Driving itself. The officer watched it 3 times. Same result. The vehicle was there. The movements happened. But no driver appeared in the footage. He reported this to his supervisor. They reviewed together. Confirmed. No driver visible. The supervisor pulled the documents from the encounter. Scanned them. The passport photograph showed a face. Male. Mid-30s. Generic features. But when they compared it to the officer's body camera footage, when they looked at the frames showing the driver, the face was blurred. Every frame. Like camera shake. But the rest of the image was clear. Just the face was blurred. Unidentifiable. They escalated. Sent the documents to verification. National Security Review. The passport came back as counterfeit. High quality, but fake. The license was fake. The vehicle registration was fake. Everything was fabricated. But fabricated well enough to pass initial inspection. Well enough to appear legitimate. The investigation concluded. Identity unknown. Vehicle untraced. Current location unknown. The officer was commended for following his instincts. But it bothered him. Not that he'd encountered a fake identity. That happens. But the quality. The completeness. Someone had created an entire person. Complete documentation. Coherent backstory. Physical presence. And sent them across the border. For no apparent reason. Declaring nothing. Transporting nothing. Just crossing. Like they were testing. Seeing if they could. Seeing if the system would catch them. And the system did. Barely. Only because one officer felt something off. Something he couldn't name. And that means others might have succeeded. Might cross regularly. Perfect documentation. Perfect behavior. Invisible to cameras. Present, but unrecorded. And the officer wonders, how many? How many times has he waved through vehicles with invisible drivers? With passengers who don't appear in footage? With documents that look real but aren't? How many times has the border been crossed by things that only appear human? That only present the appearance of legitimacy? And how would anyone know? How could anyone catch them all? When the system only flags the ones that feel wrong. And most of them probably feel right. He reviews footage of every crossing he conducts now. Every single vehicle. Every single frame. Some addresses develop histories. Layers of incidents accumulating over years. Domestic disputes. Medical emergencies. Noise complaints. Each documented. Each resolved. But the pattern persists. Different residents. Same problems. Different circumstances. Same outcomes. Eventually, the address becomes known. Officers recognize it. Dispatchers make notes. Response protocols adjust. Extra units. Senior officers. Longer documentation. Because experience has taught that calls from that address don't resolve cleanly. Don't end when they should. Something about the location persists. Continues. Refuses closure. And attempts to explain this focus on the location. The building's age. Its design. The neighborhood context. But none of these explanations account for why the problems follow a pattern. Why different people in the same space experience similar incidents. Why the building itself seems to generate calls. The standard response is to classify it as high frequency. Monitor closely. Increase patrols. But that doesn't change anything. The calls keep coming. The incidents keep happening. The pattern continues. And everyone just accepts it. Another high-frequency address. Another location where reality behaves differently. Where normal rules don't quite apply. Where officers respond knowing something will feel wrong. Something won't resolve. Something will leave them uncertain. And they go anyway. Document it anyway. File it anyway. Add it to the history that the next officer will read. The next responder will encounter. The next person will experience without warning. Without preparation, because some addresses can't be explained. Can only be endured. An ambulance crew in Saskatchewan worked rural coverage. Large territory. Long distances between calls. They'd handle medical emergencies. Traffic accidents. Transfers between facilities. Standard paramedic work. One night in July they got a call. Male. 62. Chest pain. Address was a farmhouse. 20 kilometers from town. They responded. Lights and sirens. Country roads. Dark. Arrived at the property. Single-story house. Lights on. They grabbed their equipment. Approached the door. A woman answered. Mid-50s. She said her husband was in the bedroom, having chest pain. Started about 30 minutes ago. They entered. She led them to the bedroom. The man was sitting on the bed, conscious, alert, holding his chest. They introduced themselves. Started assessment. Questions about the pain. Location. Duration. Quality. He described it. Central chest. Pressure. Radiating to his left arm. Classic presentation. They got vitals. Blood pressure elevated. Pulse rapid but regular. They placed him on oxygen. Started in 4. Gave aspirin. Standard protocol for cardiac event. They prepared for transport. The woman asked if she should follow. They said yes. Meet them at the hospital. She said she would. They loaded the man onto the stretcher. Wheeled him out. Got him into the ambulance. Secured. They departed. The driver radioed ahead. Notified the hospital. Possible MI. ETA 15 minutes. The paramedic in back continued monitoring. 12 lead ECG. Showing changes. Consistent with cardiac injury. He increased oxygen. Gave nitroglycerin. The patient's pain decreased slightly. They were about halfway to the hospital when the radio crackled. The dispatcher asked for their status. The paramedic confirmed. En route. Patient stable. Critical but stable. The dispatcher asked them to confirm their patient's name. The paramedic checked his paperwork. Read the name. The dispatcher was silent for a moment, then said they'd received a call. The patient's wife. Calling from their home. Saying her husband was having chest pain. Requesting ambulance. The paramedic was confused. Said they'd already picked up that patient. Already transported. We're almost to the hospital. The dispatcher said the call just came in 30 seconds ago. From the same address. Same woman. Same complaint. The paramedic looked at his patient. The man was lying quietly. Eyes closed. Breathing shallow but present. He radioed the driver. Told him what dispatch had said. The driver didn't understand. They'd just left that house. Just loaded this patient. How could another call come in? The paramedic asked dispatch to confirm the address. Dispatch confirmed. Exact same location. Same phone number. The wife was on the line now. Frantic. Saying her husband needed help immediately. The paramedic said that was impossible. They were transporting her husband. They'd spoken to her. She'd answered the door. Dispatch said the woman insisted she never called an ambulance. Never spoke to paramedics. Her husband was in bed. Having chest pain. Getting worse. Needed help right now. The paramedic looked at his patient again. The man's eyes were open. Looking at him. The paramedic asked his name. The man said it. Same name. The paramedic asked his address. Same address. The paramedic asked if his wife had let them in. The man said yes. She'd been there. At the door. The bedroom. He remembered. They arrived at the hospital. Offloaded the patient. Transferred care. The ER staff took over. The paramedic pulled his partner aside. Explained what dispatch had said. They called dispatch. Asked for an update. Dispatch said they'd sent another unit to the address. That unit had just arrived. They'd found the man. In the bedroom. Having chest pain. His wife had let them in. They were transporting now. ETA to hospital 8 minutes. The paramedics went to the ER charge nurse. Explained the situation. She looked confused. Checked their patient. He was being worked up. Name matched. Age matched. Presenting complaint matched. She said they should wait. See what the other unit brought in. They waited. 8 minutes passed. The other ambulance arrived. They watched. The crew brought in a patient. Male. 60s. Stretcher. They wheeled him past. The paramedics saw his face. It was the same man. Same person they transported. The same face. Same body. Same person. The ER staff took him into a different room. The paramedics looked at each other. One of them went to check their patient. Walked into his room. The bed was empty. For still hanging. Oxygen tubing disconnected. Monitor still displaying vitals from seconds ago. But no patient. Staff hadn't seen him leave. No one had discharged him. He was just gone. The paramedics found their stretcher. It was clean. Ready. Like they'd never transported anyone. But they had. They'd done the assessment. The treatment. The transport. Everything. And now their patient was gone. And a different crew had brought in the same person. Same complaint. Same presentation. They filed their report. Documented everything. Including the disappearance. The duplicate transport. All of it. Their supervisor reviewed it. Called them into his office. Asked if they'd been fatigued. If maybe they'd confused calls. If perhaps they'd imagined transporting the first patient. Both insisted. They'd done the call. They had the documentation, the vitals, the ECG strips, physical evidence. But when they pulled their equipment, checked the monitors, everything was blank. No saved data. No recorded vitals. No ECG strips. Just empty memory. Like the call never happened. But they'd done it. Both remembered. Both agreed on every detail. The supervisor said he believed they believed it. But without documentation, without the patient, without any evidence, he couldn't file it as a completed transport. He filed it as a canceled call. The crew returned to service. They worked together for another 6 months. Then one requested transfer. Different region, different partner. They don't talk anymore. Don't discuss that night. But both know what happened. Both carried the same patient. Both saw him disappear. Both watched him arrive again with a different crew. And they both know that somewhere between the farmhouse and the hospital, reality split, created 2 versions, 2 transports, 2 timelines. And they'd existed in both, until one collapsed, erased, leaving only the version that made sense. The version with evidence, with documentation, with a patient who stayed corporeal, who remained real, and their version became phantom, unrecorded, impossible to prove, impossible to verify. Just 2 paramedics insisting they transported someone who was never there. The second patient recovered fully. No record exists of the first. Dispatch systems log everything with precise timestamps, down to the second, when a call comes in, when units are dispatched, when they arrive on scene, when they clear. This data is synchronized, calibrated, auditable, when timestamps don't make sense, when they violate causality, when effects precede causes. The standard explanation is clock error, system glitch. But when multiple independent systems show the same impossible sequence, when dispatch logs show units arriving before being dispatched, when calls are marked resolved before they're received, that's harder to explain. The technical teams investigate, find no errors, no synchronization problems, no clock drift. The timestamps are accurate, which means the sequence is accurate, which means events happened out of order, or the systems are recording something that operates outside linear time, something that resolves backwards, that closes before opening. And if that's true, if time doesn't function normally in those specific calls, then the responders are experiencing something different, something nonlinear, and their reports should reflect that, should describe effects before causes, should document endings before beginnings. But they don't. The reports are normal, linear, cause then effect, event then response, which means either the responders aren't experiencing the temporal anomaly, or they are, but their memories are reordered, made linear, made sensible, made compatible with normal cognition, and they never know, never realize they responded to something backwards, never understand that what they remember as sequence was actually reverse, that they experienced the end before the beginning, and documented it wrong because they couldn't remember it right. A conservation officer in Manitoba worked a remote region, wilderness management, wildlife monitoring, backcountry patrol. Most of his work was solitary, days in a field, checking camps, monitoring hunting areas, documenting observations. One September, he was patrolling a section of Crown land, dense forest, limited trails. He was about 20 kilometers from the nearest road. On foot, he came across a campsite, recent, fire pit still warm, tent still standing, gear arranged, but no campers present. He called out. No response. He examined the site. Two-person tent, sleeping bags, food stored properly, permits posted correctly, everything in order, except no people. He checked the area, looked for tracks, found boot prints leading away from camp, into the forest. He followed. The trail was clear. 2 sets of prints. Walking, not running. Normal gait. He followed for about a kilometer. The prints continued. Steady direction. He kept following. After 2 kilometers, the print stopped. Just ended. Middle of the forest. No destination. No landmark. Just stopped. He examined the area. The last prints were clear. Deep impressions. Then nothing. The ground beyond was undisturbed. No continuation. No indication they jumped or climbed or changed direction. Just stopped walking. He circled the area, looking for where the trail might resume. Found nothing. He expanded his search. Wider circles. No prints. No broken vegetation. No signs of passage. He radioed in. Reported missing campers. Gave the location. Search and rescue was notified. They responded. Helicopter. Ground teams. Dogs. They searched for 3 days. Found nothing. No campers. No additional tracks. No evidence. Just the abandoned campsite and the trail that ended. The search was suspended. The campers were never found. Their vehicle was located at a trailhead, locked, undisturbed. Their permits showed they'd planned a 3-day trip. They'd be overdue now. But no one came looking. No family reported them missing. The officer checked registration, checked emergency contacts. Everything led nowhere. Phone numbers disconnected. Addresses invalid. Like the people who'd registered hadn't existed. He returned to the campsite, documented everything, took photos, collected the gear, personal effects, stored as evidence. He spent 6 more months in that region, regularly patrolled near that site, never saw anyone, never found additional evidence. Eventually, he transferred. Different region, different province. But he kept copies of his reports, the photos, because two people walked into that forest, set up camp, then walked in a straight line for 2 kilometers, and vanished. Not got lost, not had an accident, vanished, mid-step, between one footprint and where the next should have been. And if people can vanish like that, if they can just cease mid-stride, then what does that mean about continuity? About the assumption that existence is persistent, that people who were here a moment ago will still be here now. Maybe existence is more conditional, more temporary, more subject to interruption than anyone wants to acknowledge. Maybe people disappear constantly, mid-sentence, mid-thought, mid-step, and only occasionally does someone notice. Only occasionally does evidence remain. Most of the time the absence is clean, complete. No tracks, no abandoned camps, just people who are no longer, who stepped out of existence without warning, without reason. And the world continues as if they'd never been, as if the space they occupied was always empty, as if their existence was always uncertain. The gear is still in evidence storage. No one's claimed it. No one's asked about it. No one's acknowledged those people existed. A toll booth operator in New York worked overnight shifts. Major highway, thousands of vehicles daily. Automated systems handled most transactions. His job was to assist with problems, equipment malfunctions, payment issues, lost tickets, standard customer service. One night in November, around 3 a.m., a vehicle pulled into his lane. Sedan, 4-door, male driver. The operator greeted him, asked for payment. The driver handed cash. Exact amount. The operator processed it, printed a receipt, handed it back. The driver thanked him, pulled forward. The transaction took maybe 20 seconds. Standard interaction. But something about it bothered the operator. He couldn't identify what. The driver had been polite. The payment was correct. Everything normal. But the feeling persisted. He watched the vehicle drive away, tail lights disappearing into the darkness. He made a note. Time, lane, vehicle description, personal habit, documenting unusual feelings. An hour later, another vehicle pulled in. Same make, same model, same color, different plates. Male driver, similar appearance. The operator greeted him, started to ask for payment. The driver handed cash. Exact amount. The operator processed it. As he handed back the receipt, he looked at the driver's face. Recognition hit. Same person, same face, exact same. The operator said, "Didn't you just come through?" The driver looked confused. Said no. First time through tonight. The operator checked his notes. Different plate number. He mentioned this. The driver confirmed. That was his plate. The operator said someone with the same vehicle had come through an hour ago. The driver said that wasn't him. Must have been someone else. The operator let him through. But he was certain. Same face. He made another note. More detail this time. Over the next 3 hours, 7 more vehicles came through. All the same make. All the same model. All similar colors. All male drivers. All looking similar. Not identical, but similar. Enough to notice. He started asking questions. Where are you headed? Where are you coming from? The answers varied. Different destinations. Different origins. But the pattern continued. By the end of his shift, 12 vehicles total, all fitting the profile. He reviewed his notes. Different license plates. Different states. Different times. But the similarity was too consistent, too patterned. He reported it to his supervisor, described what he'd observed. The supervisor checked the automated records, confirmed the transactions. 12 vehicles, all registered properly, all paid correctly, all documented. The supervisor asked if he thought something illegal was happening. Stolen vehicles, coordinated activity. The operator said he didn't know. just that it felt wrong. The supervisor said he'd flag it, send it to state police, review the video footage. The operator finished his shift, went home. 2 days later his supervisor called, said they'd reviewed the footage, asked him to come in, look at it. He went. They showed him the recordings. Lane camera, vehicle camera, clear footage. They showed him the 12 transactions. He watched. Each vehicle appeared, stopped, window down, transaction completed, window up, drove away. But the drivers weren't visible, not in any of the vehicles. The cars appeared empty, driving themselves, windows opening themselves, money appearing, being exchanged, then vehicles driving away, all empty. The operator insisted he'd seen drivers, had made eye contact, had conversations. The supervisor showed him his body camera footage. The operator watched himself performing transactions, talking, responding, but to empty vehicles, no drivers visible. He watched himself hand receipts to no one, watched himself react to responses he couldn't hear on the recording. The supervisor asked if he was feeling okay, if maybe he needed time off. The operator didn't know what to say. He'd seen drivers. He was certain. He'd looked at their faces, heard their voices, but the footage showed nothing. The supervisor suggested fatigue, hallucination, stress. The operator accepted this, took a week off. When he returned, he requested day shift. They accommodated. He hasn't worked nights in 8 months, but he thinks about those 12 vehicles, those 12 drivers he saw but couldn't prove. And he wonders if they're still coming through, still paying tolls, still driving on, invisible to cameras, visible only to overnight operators, too tired to trust their perceptions, too isolated to be believed. And he wonders how many other drivers are like that. How much of the traffic on highways at night consists of vehicles that shouldn't be there, drivers that don't appear in footage, transactions that process correctly but involve no one, just automated systems interacting with absence, with void, with something that passes through without leaving evidence, without being recordable, just present enough to trigger gates, to complete transactions, to maintain the appearance of normal traffic, but not present enough to be seen, to be documented, to be proven real. The highway still processes thousands of transactions nightly. No one checks if the vehicles are occupied anymore. There's a type of call that experienced responders learn to recognize, not by content, by tone. The caller sounds wrong, not distressed, not scared, just wrong, like they're reading lines, following a script. The information they provide is accurate. The details check out, but the delivery is off, mechanical. And when units respond, they find situations that match the description. Exactly, perfectly, too perfectly, like someone staged them, arranged them to match what was reported. Not because anything illegal is happening, but because the situation and the call are too synchronized, too precise. And experienced responders notice this, feel uncomfortable, complete the call correctly, but file notes afterward, personal observations that don't go in official reports. Because officially nothing was wrong. The call was legitimate. The response was appropriate. The resolution was successful. But unofficially something felt rehearsed, prearranged, like responding to a scenario that had been prepared, not for training, not for deception, just prepared, existing in a state of readiness before anyone called, before anyone knew to respond. And those calls accumulate in personal notes, in conversations between veterans, in shared recognition when someone describes that specific wrongness. That sense of responding to something that was waiting, that had been waiting, that exists specifically to be responded to, and then resets, returns to waiting for the next call, the next responder, the next person who'll feel that wrongness. Document it privately and move on, because investigating means acknowledging, and acknowledging means accepting, and accepting means understanding that some emergencies exist independent of cause, independent of circumstance, just occurring, repeatedly, waiting to be discovered, waiting to generate calls, waiting to be resolved, so they can wait again. A pipeline inspector in Alberta monitored remote pumping stations, automated facilities, oil transport. His job was routine maintenance, checking equipment, verifying systems, documenting operations. Most stations were unmanned, just machinery operating continuously. He'd visit each location monthly. One December night, he was at Station 12, 40 kilometers from the nearest town. Isolated, single building, equipment inside. He parked, unlocked the outer door, entered. The facility was running normally. He could hear pumps, compressors, standard operational sounds. He started his inspection, checked pressure gauges, verified flow rates, examined safety systems. Everything nominal. He was completing his paperwork when he heard something. Different sound. Not machinery, rhythmic, like footsteps. He stopped, listened. The sound continued, coming from the back section, storage area. He walked toward it. The footsteps got clearer, definitely footsteps. Measured pace, walking. He called out, asked if anyone was there. The footsteps stopped. He waited, silence except for equipment noise. He continued walking, reached the storage area. Looked inside. Empty. Just spare parts. Supplies. No one present. He checked behind shelving. Behind equipment. Nothing. He returned to the main room. Resumed his paperwork. The footsteps started again. Same location. Same rhythm. He decided to record it. Got his phone. Started recording. Walked back to the storage area. The footsteps continued as he approached. He entered, held the phone up. The sound was clear, loud, right there in the room with him. But no source, no person, no movement, just sound. He panned the phone around, recording everything. The footsteps maintained their pace, walking in place, circling. He could track them. They moved around the room, past him, behind him, beside him. He turned, following. They stayed ahead, just out of sight, just beyond his position. After 2 minutes they stopped. Complete silence. He stood there, waiting. Nothing. He checked his recording, played it back. The audio was clear. His footsteps, his breathing, equipment noise, but no other footsteps. The sound he'd heard, tracked, recorded, wasn't there. He tried again, let the recording run. Stood still, silent, waited. The footsteps started, clear, audible, present. He checked his phone screen. The audio levels weren't moving. The microphone wasn't picking it up. He stopped recording. The footsteps continued. He could hear them clearly, but they weren't recording, weren't being captured, just present, audible, unrecordable. He completed his inspection. Documented everything except the footsteps. Locked up. Left. The next month he returned. Brought audio equipment. Professional recording gear. Entered the facility. Started recording immediately. Conducted his inspection. The footsteps started. Right on schedule. Same location. Same rhythm. He checked his equipment. Audio levels flat. No input. No signal. Just silence. He stood there listening to footsteps that didn't register, that existed only as direct perception, only as immediate experience, never as recording, never as evidence. He filed his monthly report. No anomalies. All systems normal. But he included a note. Unexplained sounds. Possible structural settling. Acoustic effects. Recommend monitoring. The company sent a technical team. They investigated, Spent 8 hours at the facility. Ran diagnostics. Checked for loose equipment. Vibration issues. Found nothing. All systems secured. All sounds accounted for. No explanation for the inspector's report. They concluded, no issues. Facility operational. The inspector requested reassignment. Different sector. Different stations. They approved. He hasn't been back to Station 12. But he heard from the replacement inspector. 3 months in. Same experience. Same footsteps. Same inability to record. The replacement didn't report it. Just noted it privately. Learned to work around it. Accept it as part of that facility's environment. Background noise that happens to sound like someone walking. Someone present. Someone watching his work. Following him room to room. Never interfering. Never threatening. Just walking. Endlessly. Impossibly. Unrecordably. The company's maintenance logs don't mention it. But every inspector who's worked that station knows. Sometimes evidence exists in absence. In what should be there, but isn't. Photographs that should show something, but don't. Recordings that should contain sound, but are silent. Documents that should have information, but are blank. These absences are evidence of something. Not malfunction. Not error. But removal. Deliberate or otherwise. Something interacting with documentation. With recording. With preservation. Something that doesn't want to be captured. That resists being made permanent. That allows direct experience but prevents documentation. And investigators learn to recognize this. Learn to accept that some events leave no trace. Some experiences can't be proven. Some realities exist only in the moment, only in perception. And any attempt to capture them, to make them permanent, results in absence, in blank space, in nothing where something should be. And that absence becomes the evidence, the proof that something happened, something significant enough to resist recording, something present enough to be experienced, but something that refuses to be made real in any way except immediate, direct, unpreserved. A night security guard at a museum in Toronto worked alone. Large building, multiple floors, extensive collections. His job was to patrol, check doors, monitor cameras, ensure nothing was disturbed. Standard security work. One February night, he was on the 3rd floor. Contemporary art section. Large open galleries. Minimal lighting. He was walking his route when he saw someone. Figure standing in front of a painting. Still, just looking. He called out. Said the museum was closed. The figure didn't move. He approached. Called again. Louder. Still no response. He got closer. 20 feet. The figure was a man. Middle-aged. Wearing a suit. Dark. Formal. Just standing. Looking at the painting. The guard said he needed to leave. That he couldn't be here. The man didn't respond. Didn't acknowledge. The guard reached for his radio. Was about to call for police. The man spoke. Quiet voice. Said something about the painting. About the artist. The guard stopped. Said the museum was closed. The man said he knew. Said he just wanted to look. The guard said that wasn't possible. The man needed to leave. The man turned. Looked at him. The guard felt something cold. Recognition, maybe. But he didn't know the face. Didn't know the person. Just felt like he should. The man said he'd been coming here for years. Long before it was a museum. The guard was confused. This building had been a museum for decades. The man smiled. Said no. Before that. When it was different. The guard said he needed to escort him out. The man nodded. Said of course. Started walking toward the exit. The guard followed. They walked through the galleries. Downstairs. Toward the main entrance. The guard was radioing ahead. Telling the front desk someone was being escorted out. How they'd entered. The front desk said all doors were secure. All alarms armed. No entry possible. The guard said someone was here. He was walking with them. The front desk insisted. No alarms. No doors breached. No entry logged. The guard looked at the man walking ahead. Asked how he got in. The man said he'd always been here. They reached the main entrance. The guard unlocked the door, held it open. The man walked through, out into the night. The guard watched him go, watched him walk down the steps, onto the sidewalk, and keep walking. Not hurrying, not running, just walking. The guard locked the door, reset the alarm, went to review camera footage, found the recordings from the third floor. His position was visible, walking, stopping, talking, but alone. No other person, no man in the suit, just the guard, talking to empty space. He checked the cameras for the exit, showed the door opening, the guard standing there, holding it, then closing it, but no one walking through, no one visible. He reviewed the entire evening, every camera, no unauthorized entry, no additional people, just him, alone. He filed an incident report, possible intruder, unable to locate on camera. His supervisor reviewed it, checked the footage, confirmed no one visible, asked if the guard had been drinking, using substances. The guard said no, insisted someone was there, had conversation, walked them out. The supervisor suggested fatigue, suggested seeing things. The guard accepted this, but he knew someone had been there. He'd heard the voice, heard the comments about the painting, about the building's history, and he'd looked it up later. The building had been something else before becoming a museum. Private residence. Belonged to a family. The family had commissioned artwork, collected pieces. One family member, middle-aged man, had died in the building, in what was now the third floor. Contemporary art section. 1932. The guard found a photograph. Historical archive. Family portrait. He recognized the face. The man in the suit. The man who'd been looking at paintings. Who'd said he'd been coming for years. Before it was a museum. The guard didn't show anyone the photograph. Didn't mention what he'd found. Just kept it. Personal confirmation. Because the man had been there. Had been real. Had existed beyond the camera's ability to record. Had remained in the building he'd known. The building he died in. Still visiting. Still looking at art. Still present in a way that human eyes could see, but technology couldn't capture. And the guard wonders if he's still there. If he returns nightly. If maybe he's always there. Standing in galleries. Looking at paintings. Invisible to cameras. Visible only to people. Only to direct observation. And the guard wonders how many other figures are there. How many other former residents. Former visitors. Former lives. Still continuing. Still present. Still occupying the spaces they knew. Just beyond documentation. Just outside proof. Existing in the gaps between what's recorded and what's real. The guard requested transfer to a different site. Got it. He doesn't work in that building anymore. Shift work fragments time. Days become meaningless. Today, tomorrow, yesterday. They blend. Lose distinction. You operate in blocks of hours. Sleep. Wake. Work. Sleep. The calendar becomes abstract. You know the date academically, but not experientially. Don't feel it. Don't connect with it. This creates a peculiar relationship with memory. Events don't anchor to dates properly. You remember things happening, but can't place when. Recently. A while ago. Years. All equally uncertain. And this affects testimony. When investigators ask when something occurred, night workers struggle. Can't provide dates. Can't sequence events. Everything exists in an undifferentiated past. Somewhere back there. At night. During a shift. Beyond that. Uncertain. And this uncertainty makes their accounts seem unreliable. Makes them seem confused. Unsure. But it's not uncertainty about the event. Just about when. Because when doesn't matter during night work, there's just the continuous now, the endless present of another shift, another night, another rotation, and events exist in that continuous present, not ordered, not sequenced, just occurring, all at once, all equally near, all equally available to memory. Which means a night worker might describe something from 5 years ago with the same immediacy as something from last week. Same detail, same certainty, same presence. Because in their experience, in their temporal relationship, there is no distance, no separation, just events, accumulating, occupying the same perpetual nighttime that defines their existence. A Coast Guard officer in British Columbia monitored maritime traffic, coastal waters, shipping lanes, recreational vessels. His station operated continuously. His shift was midnight to 8 a.m. standard watch. Radar, radio, visual observation. One March night, he was monitoring routine traffic, commercial vessels, fishing boats, everything normal. Around 3:30, he noticed something on radar. Small contact, moving slowly, unusual location. He tracked it. The contact maintained steady course, slow speed. He tried radio, hailed the vessel. No response. He tried again. Multiple frequencies. Still no response. The contact continued. Steady. He logged it. Notified his supervisor. They discussed. Possibly disabled vessel. Possibly unmonitored. They decided to investigate. Sent a patrol boat. Gave them coordinates. The patrol departed. 20-minute transit. They approached the location. Radioed back. Nothing visible. No vessel. No debris. Empty water. The officer checked his radar. The contact was still there. Right at those coordinates. He confirmed with the patrol. They confirmed. Nothing present. Empty sea. But radar showed clear contact. Solid return. The patrol searched the area. Widening circles. Found nothing. The officer watched his radar. The contact began moving again. Slow. Steady. Same course. The patrol followed, chasing the radar contact, but seeing nothing. The officer gave them continuous updates. Bearing. Distance. They maintained pursuit for 40 minutes, following something they couldn't see, something that only appeared on radar. Eventually the contact stopped, became stationary. The patrol reached the location, radioed. Nothing here. Empty water. The officer confirmed radar. Contact present. Solid. Right there. The patrol deployed sensing equipment. Sonar. Thermal. Nothing below. Nothing above. Just water. But radar said otherwise. Said something was there. Something large enough to reflect signal. Something present enough to track. The patrol returned. The officer continued monitoring. The contact remained stationary for another hour, then vanished. Not slowly, not fading, just disappeared between radar sweeps. One sweep present, next sweep absent. He documented everything, filed his report. Unexplained radar contact, unable to verify visually. Possible equipment malfunction, but the equipment checked out. No issues, no glitches. The radar had tracked something, accurately, consistently, something that occupied space, that reflected electromagnetic energy, but didn't exist visually, didn't appear to human observation, didn't register on any other sensing equipment. Just radar, just that one system. And the officer wonders what it was. What could exist in a way radar can detect, but eyes can't see? What could be present enough to reflect signal, to occupy coordinates, to move with purpose, but absent enough to avoid all other detection, to remain invisible, intangible, except to that one narrow frequency, that one method of observation? And he wonders how many other things are like that, present on certain frequencies, absent on others. existing in ways specific sensors can detect, while remaining completely hidden from human perception, from direct observation, from all the methods we rely on to confirm reality. And he wonders if maybe most of reality is like that. If maybe what we perceive is just the narrow band, the small frequency range, and around us, above us, below us, countless things exist that we simply can't detect, can't observe, can't confirm, because we're not looking at the right frequency, not using the right sensors, not checking the right spectrum. And they're there. They've always been there, moving through spaces we occupy, intersecting our locations, our coordinates, our existence, just on channels we can't access, can't perceive, can't know about, unless occasionally, accidentally, one sensor picks them up, shows them briefly, before they disappear again, back into the frequencies we can't monitor, back into the reality we can't see. The radar contact appeared 3 more times that year. Same location, same behavior, same inability to verify. The reports are filed under equipment anomalies. The incident occurred at 1:47 a.m. The responding officer arrived at 1:51. The witness was interviewed. The statement was recorded. The scene was documented. But when the file was reviewed 3 days later, when the investigator checked the details, the statement had changed. Not different words, different content, describing a different event, different circumstances, different outcome. But the timestamp was identical. The signature was identical. Same document, same moment, different reality. The investigator called the officer, asked about the discrepancy. The officer said he documented accurately. The investigator read him the current statement. The officer said that wasn't what the witness told him, wasn't what happened. The investigator asked if he had notes. The officer checked. His notes matched his memory, matched what he'd originally documented, but didn't match what the file currently contained. The investigator asked the officer to come in, review the file. He did. They looked at it together. The statement was there, typed, formatted, official, but wrong. The officer insisted. This wasn't what he'd written. The investigator pulled the digital log, checked the edit history. No edits, no changes. Document created at 1:53 a.m. Never modified, but somehow containing different information than what the officer remembered, than what his notes showed. The investigator didn't know what to make of it. Asked if the officer could have misremembered. The officer said no. He had his notes, physical evidence. The investigator said the notes could be wrong. Memory could be wrong. But the system didn't lie. The document was accurate. Had to be. The officer accepted this, but kept his notes, because he knows what happened, knows what he documented, and he knows the file is wrong, knows somehow between creation and review, the content changed. The reality changed. What was true became false. What was documented became something else. And there's no way to prove it. No way to demonstrate the change, because officially no change occurred. The file is original, unmodified, correct, and his memory, his notes, his certainty, those are wrong, must be wrong, because the system doesn't fail, but sometimes the officer takes out his notes, reads them, confirms to himself what he saw, what he recorded, what was real, before it became something else, before reality revised itself, before the past changed to accommodate some present that needed it different. And he wonders how often that happens. How often does documentation change without anyone noticing? How often does reality get updated, modified, corrected, to align with some version of events that serves some purpose, some need, some requirement that the past be different than it was? And most people never know, never compare, never realize that what they remember and what the records show aren't the same. That somewhere between experience and documentation, between event and archive, reality shifts, adjusts, becomes something it wasn't. And all that remains is the certainty that something's wrong, something changed, but no way to prove it, no way to demonstrate it, just the feeling, the knowledge, the private certainty that what happened and what's recorded aren't the same, have never been the same, will never be the same, because somewhere in the process of making things permanent, of capturing them, recording them, something else happens, something that alters, that revises, that ensures the official version serves whatever purpose it needs to serve, whether that matches reality or not. The witness was never contacted for clarification. The case was closed based on the statement as filed. No one questioned the discrepancy again.